This Day in Sports History. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History. I'm your host, Steve White. This dish is a member of the Sports History Network. You can go to sportshistorynetwork.com and find more podcasts and more info. Once again, that is sportshistorynetwork.com. It's October 11th, and I'm hoping to provide a little salve to Philadelphia Phillies fans' wounds after that tough loss in the NLDS on Thursday night. On this day throughout the sports history timeline, we had a pitcher that was not a Philadelphia Philly throwing wildly to allow the series winner to score. A clutch hitting and base running performance by the Phillies to win a crucial game and another NLCS. Plus, we had completely unrelated to the Phillies, Deion Sanders pulling some double duty, and the premiere of the Zamboni, not in Philadelphia. All that, plus a non-sports fun fact about the gopher from the movie Caddyshack. Stick around. This will be the best 15 minutes of your day, guaranteed. So, if you are a Philadelphia Phillies fan, then without a doubt, you are more than mildly disappointed at how your season came to an end on Thursday night. Orion Kerkering shouldering the blame for his decision to throw home and then throwing the ball away to allow the Dodgers to advance to the NLCS. Well, while it may not give you any solace, a similar situation happened in the 1972 NLCS on this day, and it was a decisive Game 5 of the National League Championship Series between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. The Pirates had a 3-2 lead heading into the bottom of the ninth, just 3 outs away from going back to the World Series as the defending champs. Johnny Bench led off the inning for the Reds, and as he stepped into the box, he heard a familiar voice screaming at him. He took a quick look to see his mom in the stands, and she screamed, "Hit a home run for me, Johnny!"
The wide. And a pitch to Bench. Change hit in the air to deep right field. Back goes Clemente. It's a catch. He's done.
Al Michaels on the call for the Reds of Bench's game-tying homer off Dave Justy. Singles by Tony Perez and Dennis Minky followed, and that sent Justy to the showers. Bob Moose was called on to replace Justy, and George Foster pinch ran for Perez. Tony Geronimo's sac fly to center allowed Foster to move over to third. Moose got an infield pop-up for the second out of the inning. Hal McRae came up to pinch hit with the winning run 90 feet away.
The stretch. And the 1-1 pitch to McRae. In the dirt, it's a wild pitch. Here comes Foster. The Reds win the pennant. Bob Moose throws a wild pitch, and the Reds have won the National League pennant.
Moose's wild pitch ended the Pirates season. It was the first time since the inception of the NLCS in 1969 that the full complement of games was actually needed. The Reds went on to play the Oakland Athletics in the World Series in another one that went the distance. The A's won the World Series in 1972, 4-3 over the Reds. So if that did not make Phillies fans feel any better, well, how about what happened on this day in 1980 when Charlie Hustle scored the winning run? This was Game 4 of the NLCS between Philadelphia and the Houston Astros. Before we get to the decisive moment, though, we got to talk about what happened earlier in the game. Now, the game was scoreless in the top of the 4th inning. The Phillies were threatening with men on first and second and no outs, and Gary Maddox at the plate.
Vern Rule has 2 strikes on the hitter. Back to him, he short hops, and he forgets where the buttons are. Oh, I don't know whether he caught it or not, if he short hopped it, and now we're going to have an argument. Just a moment. Did he short hop it or did he catch it? If they go back to second base, they got a triple play, depending on if he caught the ball.
Now this is something.
Doug Harvey and Ed Vargo, 2 of the senior umpires in the National League, having the discussion. Harvey was blocked out. He's out.
That's
it's a triple play. And the inning is over. Here comes Dallas Green.
We have seen everything in this series.
I do not believe it.
It was a bit unbelievable, and once things shook out, it ended up being something different. So a couple of things here. It did look like Rule short-hopped it and took the easy out at first. He even looks a little surprised himself that they actually called it a double play. And then when Astros first baseman Art Howell sees what's going on, well, he runs to second base to double up the runner that went to third for the so-called triple play. So after a consultation that took about 20 minutes to sort out, crew chief Doug Harvey finally called it a catch and a double play, saying that time had been called before the triple play could be completed. So, instead of 2 men in scoring position with 1 out, the Phillies had a man on third with 2 outs, and they failed to score any runs. Philadelphia did score 3 in the 8th to take a 3-2 lead. Houston tied it up in the 9th, and this game went to extra innings. In the top of the 10th, Pete Rose singled with 1 out. After Mike Schmidt flied out, Phillies manager Dallas Green sent Greg Luzinski to the plate to pinch hit. The Bull delivered, and Charlie hustled.
Hit down the left field line toward the corner. It's bouncing off the wall. Fielded by Cruz. Here comes Rose around third. It'll take a perfect play. The throw to the plate gets away from Bochy. Rose scores. The ball was there in time. The catcher couldn't come up with it.
Now, if Astros catcher Bruce Bochy had come up with the ball, well, Rose would have treated him like Ray Fosse. But when he couldn't come up with it, Rose gave Bochy more of a little shoulder-to-shoulder nudge to score the go-ahead run. They added an insurance run later on, and after the Astros failed to score any in the bottom half, the Phillies won Game 4, 5-3. They went on to win the series the next night with another extra inning affair. In fact, 4 of the 5 games in the 1980 NLCS went to extra innings. The Phillies went on to beat the Kansas City Royals 4-2 in the World Series. Hey, real quick. You've heard me talk a lot about the Sterling Soap Company over the past few months, and if you haven't tried out their soaps, I get it. It's not easy changing up your routine. But let me just say, if you give them a try, I'm nearly 100% certain you will have 0 regrets. They carry not only bar soap, but shave soap, liquid body soap, body lotions, beard balm, lip balm, and a lot more. Plus, there are myriad scents to choose from. Their products are made with natural ingredients and scented oils, and they are committed to being environmentally conscious. And I always get a handwritten note on my packing slip, so I know it's been checked before shipping, and it's a nice little human touch in a world that seems to be going away from that. Give Sterling Soap a try today at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1992, Deion Sanders pulled off one of the most incredible feats in professional sports. In fact, maybe the only correlation to this is in music and what Phil Collins did for Live Aid. Deion Sanders was playing for both the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Braves at this point. The Braves were in the National League Championship Series against Pittsburgh, a series that we will certainly talk about in a few days for that wild ending, and the Falcons were getting ready for a game in Miami. In the week leading up to any NFL game, there's a lot of time spent on the practice field, in the film room, getting treatment. But Deion wasn't there. Game 1 and 2 of the NLCS were in Atlanta on Tuesday and Wednesday, with the Braves winning both. Sanders did not see action in Game 1, and he had 1 at-bat in Game 2. Games 3, 4, and 5 were in Pittsburgh. Game 4 on Saturday night saw the Braves take a 3-1 series lead. Sanders came in as a defensive substitute in the 7th and again had only 1 at-bat. The game ended just before midnight. Within a half hour, Deion hopped in a limo off to the airport. He and his entourage boarded a plane provided by Nike, and they were wheels up in a few minutes. They landed in Fort Lauderdale at 4 a.m. and headed to the team hotel, where Sanders got a little bit of sleep before jumping on the team bus and heading out to the stadium. Falcons head coach Jerry Glanville was not overly happy about Deion's double duty. He understood what he was trying to do, but would have certainly liked to have had his all-pro cornerback at practice. Glanville shocked the pregame locker room when he announced, "Deion, you're not starting. You come in here without practicing all week and you fly in on a helicopter, I'm not starting you." The place went silent. But Glanville was not an idiot. He knew he couldn't keep Deion on the bench very long, and he didn't. After the first Dolphins offensive play, Glanville turned to him and he told him his punishment for missing practice was over, so go out and play. He didn't do anything spectacular in the game, but he did return a couple of kicks and even played a little offense, catching a pass for 9 yards. Miami won the game 21-17, and it was time for Deion to get moving again to the airport. Wheels up in Miami, wheels down in Pittsburgh at 7:45 p.m. His limo to the stadium got him there 15 minutes before the first pitch. He wasn't in the starting lineup, but that wasn't as big a shocker as earlier in the day in Miami. Braves general manager John Schuerholz was also not a big fan of Deion's double dip. With a playoff roster of only 25 players, Schuerholz said he would have left PrimeTime off the postseason roster if he'd known his plans ahead of time. Manager Bobby Cox was okay with it, but did not insert Sanders into the game, and the Braves lost that one 7-1. Deion wasn't happy about that, and despite the Herculean effort to be in two places at once, he made a point of saying that he didn't play two games in two different sports in two different cities on the same day. He merely suited up for two. On this day in 1991, it was Chip Beck becoming just the second player in PGA Tour history to card a 59 in an official PGA Tour event. It was the third round of the Las Vegas Invitational, and at 6,900 yards, it was about 300 yards shorter than the course Al Geiberger had pulled the feat on 14 years earlier. Beck had 13 birdies and 5 pars on the par 72 course to become the second Mr. 59. Of course, the record now is 58, held by Jim Furyk. On this day in 1954, I'm not exactly sure it was this day, but let's just say it was around this day that the Boston Bruins became the first team in the NHL to use a Zamboni machine to resurface their ice. Now, the reason I say it was this day is this was the date of their home opener for the 1954-55 season, so it seems like a pretty good chance that this was the date. Frank Zamboni had come up with a working prototype for the original Zamboni back in 1949. While that early model was a repurposed farm tractor and would be a far cry from what you see in today's NHL rinks, the basic functioning of the machine is still the same, and the Bruins were the first team to see the value in it and put it into good use. And speaking of hockey, on this day in 1972, it was the debut of the World Hockey Association. The Ottawa Nationals opened up the new league with a home game in the Civic Center against the Alberta Oilers on this night. The game was televised nationally in Canada, which was good because not many other people were going to see it. The Oilers had only managed to sell 400 season tickets, and there was a worry that not all of those would actually show up. It wasn't going to look very good on television. So the marketing team got to work and decided to offer free tickets to any kid that came with an adult. Not one for one, it could be 10 kids with one adult and they'd get in free. It worked to an extent. About 2,000 paying adults showed up with about 3,000 kids running around the arena wreaking havoc. The Oilers beat the Nationals 7-4, and the WHA was off and running for its 7-year run. Now, one story to tell about the WHA that I picked up from Ed Willis's incredible book, The Rebel League, is about Ottawa Nationals goalie Gilles Gratton. He did not play in this game, he wasn't even with the team yet, but he did join the organization a few weeks later. And he was one of those characters that helped define the WHA. He was, let's just say, a bit quirky. He earned the nickname Gratoony the Loony with his eccentricities such as his belief in past lives. He said he'd been reincarnated several times and could provide details of his previous earthly iterations in chronological order. He'd been a landowner in 17th century Spain in one, he'd been in Egypt during the times of the pharaohs in another, and said he'd been an advisor to one of them, and he also talked about being a Mayan priest in yet another one. No word on whether he actually performed any human sacrifices, though. His quirks also ran to the more annoying, such as pleading with the coaches that he couldn't play in a game because his ribs still hurt from a spear wound that he said was from a battle 300 years in the past. Or quitting the game during the second intermission because, well, he'd faced enough shots for the night. And sometimes when the action around the net got a little too hectic, he whispered to himself, "Dead fish," and then collapsed to the ice, pretending he'd passed out. But when he was not letting his quirkiness interfere with his goaltending, Gilles Gratton, was pretty good, and he led the Nationals on a surge that season, making the playoffs in year one as the fourth best team in the East. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Caddyshack is one of my all-time favorite movies. And of course, the golf course destroying gopher plays a central role in the movie. Well, if you have ever thought that the gopher vocalizations sounded familiar, but you just couldn't put your finger on where you had heard them before, it is probably because you were thinking about something other than an ocean creature. The gopher sounds are actually dolphin vocalizations, but not just any dolphin, but the very well-known dolphin from the 1960s TV show Flipper. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for stopping by and giving this episode a listen. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.